So, for anybody who's new, this is the third series that we're running, and our whole format and everything that we've been doing is I've been teaching you a model for life to help you understand and to help you work through events, blocks, problems, issues, emotions, all of these things that we all have to deal with. And tonight's section is called Accessing Higher Mind. And so I'm going to recap real quickly for you just kind of what we've been doing. The circles of life is the model that I've created that we've been working off of. And from the basic premise, the circles of life consist of the three overlapping circles that you can use as a model for the majority of aspects that we deal with. So, in traditional context, this process is about the three components that each one of us walk through life with, which is body, mind, and the inner spirit or our soul. And as these things work together, what we find is the relationships and how these things interact and affect one another. So what we've talked about is if you imagine these to be circles that interact and also rotate and turn, what we've talked about in recapping this is, for instance, when all of these components are lined up and aligned in the center point, we have what we call balance and harmony, as these things are all in unison together, right? They share the same space. They have equal components of each. When we're balanced in body, mind, and spirit, we're making the choices, we're having the thoughts, we're experiencing physical health, and we're experiencing spiritual joy and things of this nature. What happens is that events come along in life. If physically we get hurt, then the body rotates out of balance. And if you imagine this being like a cog or a wheel turning, what it does is eventually it turns the mind out of balance, and the mind starts thinking things like, I'll never be the same, I'll never heal, I'll never get better, I'll never be able to do what I used to be able to do, right? And in the same spirit, if that happens long enough, then the spirit will also rotate out. And then what we find that we're in a depressed mood. We don't have the same vigor for life. We start to lose meaning and purpose and joy that we used to have, all because the body went out of balance. And so by rebalancing the other areas, whether it be mind or spirit, we can also rebalance the body. Now what I'm talking about, I'm referring back to, I think I told you that I used to work in chronic pain management, and what I would do is I would run groups and spiritually and mentally work to help people heal, and their bodies would heal when the doctors had been unable to heal them by surgical procedures. The body naturally wants to heal. What happens is the mind and the spirit get in the way. Every single one of your cells replaces itself. On every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced. And so with that said, we should heal unless we get something in the way. So in the same is true, if something happens and all of a sudden we start thinking a certain way, we hold a perception, a thought that starts driving our force, like I'm never going to be able to do this, and that kind of thinking, the mind rotates out of balance. And then what we find is then spiritually, we rotate out of balance, we start becoming depressed, we start losing our zest for life and our enjoyment. And then ultimately what you'll see is that the body will also follow suit and rotate out, whether that be in the form of high blood pressure, weight gain, or various problems that we experience. Even sickness comes from too long of feeling a negative mind, comes from being spiritually depressed too long. It results in the body reflecting what's going on the inside. So again, what we see is by addressing if we're using the body, if we use exercise, we know that we can help cure depression. If we are using exercise and we're helping to cure depression in the body because we're releasing dopamine and the chemicals that are actually the exciting factors in the mind, then what we'll see is that we'll start to feel better. We'll start to have energy again. We'll start to engage and have happiness and the normal things that we find joy in. So, as these things work in each other, we can work in any one or two of these areas to adjust the other. This was the basic premise. So then how do we do this? How do we analyze things like the mind and the spirit? Well, we do this in the same format, only we incorporate the components of choice, experience, and perception. And so as I explained to you, this is a very simple diagram. It's a triad that works in every single one of us. Your perception is the way you see the world. It's the way you view an event. It's the way you look at a situation. It's the way you believe something to be. And from that belief, from that perception, the way you see this event or this thing or this relationship or whatever it is you're looking at, you will then go on to hold a belief that will then guide the choices that you make. If you believe that I am mean, you will then make choices to avoid me. You will make choices that will bring you, you may sass, you may be sarcastic, you may be on and on and on. Then what you don't realize is that the experience that you'll have, if you're perceiving me to be mean and you're being distant and aloof and being sarcastic with me, how am I going to be with you? I'm going to be similarly, and then your experience with me is I'm probably going to be mean because I'm going to think that you don't like me and you're an unpleasant person and I don't want to be around you. So what I want you to understand is you can put anything in this. Any perception you hold about anything, your job. If you perceive that your employer doesn't value you, what are your choices going to be pertaining to the work that you do? You're going to choose to take shortcuts. You're going to choose to call in sick. You're going to choose to do half the job. What is your experience then going to be if you do all of those things? Your employer is then going to see that you're doing half a job, that you're calling in sick all of the time, and that you're doing all of these things. And your experience is probably going to be that your employer doesn't value you very much, and you might even get terminated or let go. What you need to understand is that your perception probably caused what you're experiencing, and you don't even know it. Because it does so in the subconscious mind. It's the operating program that's going on behind everything. Does that make sense? And so in this way, as you become more and more aware of your own perceptions, well, what am I thinking here? What am I doing? Are there any other possibilities? Well, I'm perceiving it this way, but I guess it could also be this way. We begin to become more aware. We begin to become aware of the interconnectedness of events, of cause, of effect. We understand that we have power and that we influence everything that happens to us. If in my mind I've decided to be negative about something, I am then going to have a perception that it's bad, it's not worth it, it's not good. And so then from that perception, I am going to go on to make choices that, what's the point? I'm not going to make it anyway, or I'm not going to be good enough, or it's never going to work. And then so of course I'm going to experience the things that are in unison with my choices. If I'm putting in a half effort because I perceive it's never going to happen or it's not going to work, my choices are going to be to not go all the way, to not do what I need to do, to not fully engage. My experiences then are going to be controlled and predictable. I'm not going to get what it is I say I want. So what I'm teaching you about this is that if you decide what you want, what experience do you want to have, you can then determine what choices do I need to make in order to have that experience occur. And as you make choices and you get the experience you want, you then start shaping your perception. Oh my God, I can do this. Oh my God, it does work. Are you with me? And so in this way, these things start rolling and circulating together, and they create everything in life that we experience. Our thoughts, our mind, our emotions, our experiences, our choices, the actions of ourselves, the actions of others, they're all interconnected. And this is what we see as we become more and more aware. This is why the teachings of Buddha and Jesus about karma, about cause and effect, about reap and sow. Because what we fail to understand is that at the heart, we're all egocentric beings, and we think that we're right. We think that the way we're looking at the situation is the right way and the only way to be seen. And what we fail to understand is that that's just the way we're choosing to look at it now. Usually that's why they say hindsight is the greatest teacher. Because we have a belief, we have a perception, we go on and on and on, and then all of a sudden one day something happens and we're like, oh my God, I just had an aha moment. I realize that it's not this way, or that I was contributing to that, or that I created this. On and on and on, we see that all of these things are within our control. Harmony in body, mind, and spirit is when they're all aligned and in alignment and operating in this area. When you experience life that you want to experience, when your perceptions are guiding your choices, which are the ones you want, and you're experiencing what you want, these things are also in balance and in alignment. So many of us unknowingly say we want to experience harmony in a relationship. However, what we don't understand is that we're making choices that are creating disharmony. Now, of course, our perception is we have our reasons. They deserve it. They did this to me first, right? We go through, we rationalize, we make up our reasons. But what we don't understand is if we want peace and we want love in our relationship, we have to make choices that bring and demonstrate what we want. The love, the closeness, the connection in our relationships. Are you with me? And so all of this forms that circle that we keep spinning. We fall into patterns in relationships. We fall into patterns in our work and our job. We're the greatest employee in the world for the first year. Then once we figure it out, we start getting bored. We're not tested. We're not tried. We're not appreciated. So now all of a sudden we start changing some of our choices and some of our behaviors. And all of a sudden we have a different experience. And then we start validating our experience with our perception, saying, I was not valued, I was undervalued, I was taken advantage of, I was never loved, blah, 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 on and on and on. And that's how that circle works. What I'm teaching you about this simple model is you can put anything you want in here. You can operate any area of your life that's not working, and you can analyze it through the choices you're making, the experiences that you want to have, and the perceptions that you're holding about the event or the person or the situation or whatever it is that you're doing. And you will see if they are consistent, you're operating in here and getting what you want. If they are inconsistent and not matching up, you will see that you are having problems in that particular area of your life. So when I work with people, what I do is I simply explore these three areas. What is it you want? What is it your desire? If tomorrow you woke up and you could say a miracle occurred, what would your life look like? What would be going on? And then you tell me. And I'd say, okay, well, what choices are you making that would facilitate this type of experience or this thing? 90% of the time, what we find is we're not choosing in accordance with the experiences that we want. And the reason is because we have some skewed or errant perception about, well, why, how, what, when. And that's the stories that we make up and tell ourselves that go on to unconsciously guide what we experience, right? So, the other model that I have shown you is every single instance in the universe resides in the form of a circle. If we talk about love, if this is the circle of love, and you can put anything, any emotion, any thought, any feeling, everything in the universe has its opposite. Its opposite, according to the circle, is diametrically opposed, exactly as far away, if you were to travel around the circle, as it could possibly be. So if this is the circle of love, and on one side we have positive love, and on the other side we have negative or lack of love, then we could say that this point here, the furthest extreme out, would be complete and total unconditional love. And we can equally say that the point directly across from it would be loathing, would be hate, would be no love at all, absence of all love. Are you with me? And so within this circle, and we travel around it, what we find is people always ask me such a question: how could I be married to this person for so many years and have all this love and now hate each other so vehemently? Because they share the same circle. They're on the same circle. And what happens is, as we do things, as we perceive things, we move around the circle. And you can not like somebody initially when you meet them, and all of a sudden they can, out of the blue, do a favor for you or show you something. Oh my God, that person was so nice. And all of a sudden that person, we immediately come over here and we start liking this person. On the other hand, we can initially love someone and be smitten with them and overlook all of the flaws and the things that we see. And as time goes on, we start noticing flaws and character defects, things that we don't like. And so we start falling out of love. People always ask me, how do you fall out of love? Because it's what you focus on. If you focus on the bad, you see the bad. If you focus on the good, you see the good. If you get in your own way and start making choices, you will ultimately experience the same movement along the circle, which is every single thing in life. So, if you want to be here, you have to make the choices, and you have to reshape the thoughts and the perception in your mind to support those choices, to have the experience to move you here. I can't give you happiness. Only you can give yourself happiness. You have to be happy with yourself. You have to be happy with your choices. You have to be happy with the experiences you're having. And if you're not, you need to change the choices that you're making. Or you need to change the perceptions that you have. Because what we don't understand is half the times we're upset is because we humans develop expectations. I want this, I expect this to happen, and then something in the world gets in our way and messes it up, and then we're unhappy. Because our happiness, we make it conditional upon things out here that we don't have control over. But the true essence in all the teachings of all the masters is that happiness is an internal quality that's a choice that you have to make. So, with that, I introduced you to the 3 levels of consciousness. And so with the 3 levels of consciousness, this is the quintessential model for every single one of our lives. There is, biblically, this outer circle would be called the outer kingdom. This is what we see all around us. Out here in the outer kingdom, we have things, we have events that happen. We want to go on a picnic, but it rains, and so we're sad. That's an outer event that's beyond our control, and we live and believe on these things on the outer world. In the outer world, we're concerned with how we look to others. I want you to like me. I want you to think I'm smart. I want you to think I'm special. And then consequences or events, or I watch for cues to get that. And then if I don't get them, what happens to me? I end up moving around the circle of positive to the circle of negative because I'm not getting what I want. Because I have expectancies, I have desires, I have wants from you, I have needs from you that I've created in my own mind. In the outer world, what we're looking at is cause and effect relationships. These are all the things that happen to us. These are all the things that we would consider to be accidents. Oh, I was having a great day, and then I smashed my car into somebody else's car, and now I had a miserable day. And that's a choice. Your perception of the accident will then drive what experience you have. Really, the truth of the matter is that accidents happen. If you drive long enough, you're going to have one, right? People hit you, they weren't paying attention, it happens. That's why we have insurance, right? We have insurance to protect us from these kind of flaws. Yes, it's an inconvenience, but what's a positive side? You know what? That car was getting old and I needed a new paint job anyway. That car was getting old and I wanted a new one anyway. Now with the insurance money, I can go and buy one. All of these things end up coming around and round. In the end, if you look back at something bad that happened to you, right now as an adult where you sit in your life, can you think of anything bad in your life that actually happened and you can look back at it and say, you know what? If that hadn't happened, then this would have never happened, and this would have never happened, and I wouldn't be where I am right now, which is really where I want to be. I'm glad that happened. And that can attribute to just about anything. People often have this outside world is the place where immediate gratification occurs and we get upset. So on the next level, on the inner circle, the second level of consciousness, what we have is we have the circle of mind. We have the outer kingdom, we have the inner kingdom, and then according biblically, the inside is the holiest of holies. So what you're going to see as we move through this consciousness, what happens is there comes a point in every one of our lives where we start to realize that we have control over some of the events that happen out there in our life. If you don't want X to happen in the past, you have done this, and it's happened the way you wanted it to happen. So you think you have control. We do this in our relationships all the time. Let's say that you want your significant other to do something for you, and they say no. What do you learn? You have learned that by guilting them, or by begging them or pleading with them, you get your way and they do what you want. And so then that becomes a learned behavior that you now say, hey, anytime I want them to do this, I can use this to help manipulate. I have some control, right? So we begin to shape and control. And what happens is, as we get into this world of mind, we become control freaks. We think we can control everything. We try to control other people. We try to control our jobs. We try to control our children. We try to control events, circumstances, timing. We try to control everything. We are massive control freaks. What happens is that when we get in here and we think we've got it all figured out, we like our world exactly the way it is. We don't want it to change. We don't want anybody messing with our pudding. We don't want to stirring up our cake mix. We want it just the way it is. And then what happens if somebody throws you a curveball or changes the plan at the last minute? We're in chaos. Think about your vacation. You have planned out your vacation to a T because in your mind, you don't want anything bad to happen. You know exactly what you want to do. You know exactly how you want it to occur. You've got all your things planned. You've got this. And then all of a sudden you miss a flight. All of a sudden your reservations are messed up. All of a sudden the hotel overbooks and your room gets canceled. This, and this. All these things happen all the time. These are the curveballs that bounce us back from this inner level of control where we feel like we have a certain level of balance. And it bounces us back out to the outside circle where all of a sudden now, here we are, we're victims of circumstance again. Oh my God, I'm so mad. My whole vacation is ruined. If my perception is that my whole vacation is ruined, what are my choices going to be? Pout? Whine, bitch, complain, sit in my hotel room? What is my experience going to be then? It's going to be the worst vacation of my life. Unknowingly, this outer perception, this thing that happened to us, that we say, oh my God, I can't believe this happened, shapes our perception, which makes our choices, which then experiences us exactly what we didn't want to happen in the first place because we let it. Am I connecting with you on this? What is your alternative choice? There is a place within the inner self, the higher mind that we're going to discuss this evening, that understands things happen. People say and do things out of emotion. They don't necessarily mean that about me. They're saying what they're saying because of their state right now, but I take it personally. How many of you take something personally? How many of you have read an email and assumed the person was mad at you and gotten in a fight with them only to find out, whoa, that's not what I meant. That's not what I was thinking. Because you weren't considering how the mood you were in when you were reading the email or when you were taking in the information. You put your own spin on it and didn't even know it, and therefore went to create the rift because your perception was, they're mad at me. Your choices was, I'm going to yell at them and send them a scathing email. Your experience was, now you're really in a fight with this person because you've stuck a dagger in them, right? And it's this that you need to understand to operate and function on the real, true wheel of life. And so as these things spin in and out and in and out and in and out, we go through life. This is why the older you are, the more likely you are to be aware. Be more aware. The more life experience you have, the more likely you are to be aware. Why? I taught these girls at this ranch, and what I found was these 18 to 24-year-old girls were able to become more aware than most of the therapists that I was working with and leading at that time. Now, how could that be? Because these girls had been on this so much and had so many things happen to them in their lives that they were ready and willing to accept and understand, you know what, I don't have control over anything except me. That is the key to life. That is the principle you need to understand. You can't control your dog, you can't control your man, you can't control your woman, you can't control your job, you can't control the weather. The only thing you can control is the way you choose to think about it and what you choose to do and how you choose to feel. That's all you can control. And it's that you need to focus your energy on. But most of us get stuck in between the inner world and the outer world, trying to control everything around us, every situation, every circumstance. And it makes us crazy when we lose control. Isn't that what we say? Oh my God, I've lost control. Everything's out of control. what the universe is trying to tell us is, hey, I appreciate the way you think, but there's a lesson here for you to learn. You don't have control of any of that stuff. I do. And if you would just play along and get with the program, there's a place inside of you that would be able to understand and see this, and you would have a much happier, a much better, a much more productive life. And it's in this way that we begin. And so I was telling you about these girls. Once they were able to sit down and listen and stop blaming the rest of the world for their situation. You're sitting in this ranch right now, not because of your mom who you want to blame, not because of your dad who you want to blame, not because of this, that, or the other. It's because of the choices that you've made. You chose to do drugs. You chose to then go off and sell your body to do more drugs. You chose this, and this, and you've had all these experiences, and you're blaming everyone except for the only person that had control over any of it, which was you. And it's in that moment, oh my God, I never really thought of it that way. We have an epiphany, right? We have the aha moment. What we realize is that our choices are indeed bringing us the experiences that we're having. And the perception of poor me can create those choices to be off, to be skewed. The world owes me this. This person owes me this. And therefore we're always upset because we're not getting what we think we deserve and what we think we want. And what are we doing in our choices? We're making choices that are pushing that person or that what we want further and further away. Right? And so we end up not getting what we want, and we blame everyone except for ourselves. I told you this before. If you're pointing the finger at somebody else, you're pointing 3 back at yourself, and you need to pay attention to what's going on inside of you. The pot calling the kettle black. That's why we say this. Because we're blind to our own stuff. Because we're so used to being inside of our own head and having the little voice that stands on our shoulder talk at us, that we think we're right and we think that voice is right. What I'm explaining to you and what I'm teaching you is there's another voice that lives inside of you as well. I gave you the story of the 2 wolves and how they battle. Which wolf wins? The one you feed. The good wolf is the one you feed every time you're loving, every time you're forgiving, every time you're accepting, every time you're understanding, every time you're compassionate, every time you put yourself in the shoes of another and you're able to say, you know what? I can see where you're coming from. I feel you. Now, that's not my intent, or that's not what I wanted to do, and I'm sorry for that. How can we work it out? If you did that in every one of your relational situations, instead of exploding or instead of attacking, you would be able to work out every problem you could possibly ever have. But what happens? We get out here because something happens, we get emotional, we get upset, we get bent, and then all of a sudden our perception is, you wronged me, you don't love me, you're not caring about me, or I'm being abused. And then our choices start becoming, and then our experiences end up being exactly what it is we claim we don't want. Do you see how these things all work together? So, within the inner realms, what happens, and back to the girls on the ranch, what they had developed that most people don't, that live in this game of control in mind, is they had so many negative, bad, harmful, hurtful experiences that they had developed ultimate coping skills. Coping skills are the skills you use to deal with something every time something out here happens that you don't want to happen. Right? How you cope with your reservation being screwed up will determine what your vacation ends up looking like. It's not the fact that your reservation got messed up. If you play your cards right and stay cool, they might put you up in the penthouse of another hotel. But if you go off and start screaming and yelling and bringing havoc and say, no, I want this, I want this, I want this, you're assured that they're not going to want to help you as much, and B, you're not going to have the happiness and the joy that you had planned on having. Life throws us curveballs all the time. It's our mind and the perception that we're coming from that is the issue that we need to address. If you're able to analyze your own perception, your own path of thought, then you'll be able to determine, okay, this is my perception. Are there other perceptions possible? If I make this perception and make these choices, is what I want going to come my way? It's a chain, a logical chain. And that's where we get into this inner mind. But then something happens and it pulls us out to the outside world, and then we get upset, and then we start operating out of chaos, and then we're moved away from the center of self instead of the self. So as we do this, eventually in life, you get to the point where you've had enough experiences happen that you're like, you know what? I've been through worse. This isn't that bad. How's that experience going to be if I take that attitude as opposed to blowing up and getting upset? It's going to be so much better, even if nothing better happens. My attitude surrounding, you know what? I've had worse happen. This will be okay. People all the time, they'll say, oh, Hunter, I'm so sorry. And I'll say, hey, you know what? If that's the worst thing that happens to me today, I'll have a good day. And so what kind of day do I end up having? I end up having a good day. Why? Just because my outlook and my perception of what I make bad. People get upset with one person and they start yelling and get upset. And then the other person, what do you naturally do? You start yelling back because you're being attacked, so you defend yourself, right? Now, when you're both yelling at each other, do you ever have the ability to solve a problem? You stop listening as soon as the yelling starts. So what's the answer? Ho, ho, ho. I get you're upset. I can see that. What's bothering you? Can we talk about it? A solution can be reached. Same thing is true with your vacation. Okay, I'm on vacation. I'm sure you can understand how upsetting this might be to me and my family that your hotel has overbooked. What do you think the possible solutions are? How can you help me solve this problem? Well, I could put you up in the hotel next door. It's a 5-star. That would be fantastic. Why don't you do that? And all of a sudden now I got an upgraded room and I got this and I got that, and he's solving my problem for me, and the vacation ends up going on to be the best ever, and it would have never happened had my reservation not got messed up in the first place. Right? And it might just so happen I meet the person that I need to meet in order to make some other piece of my life work. This is the way they say God works in mysterious ways. When you're in the flow, when I say in the flow, when you are operating from the higher mind and the higher self and the center of self, you are not disturbed by outer consequences and by things that just happen. Or if you are, you may get pulled out here, but you quickly return and you use your coping skills and you say, okay, that's bad. That really sucks. I didn't want that to happen. But now, what are my options? The less time I spend out here, the better my mind is going to operate and come up with solutions. And the better myself, my soul, my emotions are going to be able to come up with alternative ways of being, alternative solutions that are contrary to the ones that you normally see out here. What we see in our world today is a whole bunch of human beings living out here. What have we found? We have found over the last couple of decades that a whole bunch of people have found that they have some control in their world. I want my same job, I want my same friends, I want my same stuff, I want all my stuff in my world just like this. I don't want these people out here messing with my stuff. I don't want anybody coming in here and doing this. So we try to stay right here. And then something happens and pulls us out. Oh my God, I can't believe my world's been messed up. I had control and now I'm out of control. All of that is the illusion that we create. In this world today, we have hundreds of millions of people living out here, fighting over who's right and who's wrong, fighting over their choices for control and domination and power. Mostly it's about money and it's about emotional hurt and paybacks. Well, you did this to me, so I'm going to do this to you. Right? Eye for an eye, that was the Old Testament. That's level 1 consciousness. Jesus came along and said, hey, you know what? Get in your mind. Level 2 consciousness, there's another place. There's a place where, you can turn the other cheek. There's a place where you can understand that, you know what? How many times should I forgive them? As many as it takes. Because forgiveness isn't for the person that you're forgiving. It's for yourself, so you're not upset by them every time you think of them, or every time you see them, or every time you have that incident come up in your mind again. Forgiveness is for you to let go of something so it doesn't make you suffer. It's not for them. Level 1 thinks it's for them. I shouldn't forgive them. They should suffer. Level 2 and level 3 understands, you know what? They are who they are. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. I don't control them. The only thing I know is I'm not going to let their actions dictate my emotions. I'm not going to let their behavior cause me upset and hurt and heartache and pain and suffering. I've just moved to the 3rd level of consciousness where I'm controlling myself, my own thoughts, my own mind. I am the master of me. You are the master of you. If every one of us were to operate from the basic conditions that we're discussing, Peace, acceptance, forgiveness, understanding. The ability to say, hey, I see you're upset. Can I help you solve this problem? What would the world look like that we live in today? I'm here to tell you this is the place that the ancients wrote about. Heaven on earth comes to mind. If all of us people were working together to create more and better for everyone, instead of trying to line my pocketbook with your money in any way I can, then I think that the world would begin to change. If neighbors would truly get together and help each other and reach out, as opposed to, you know what, that's your shit, stay away from me, right? And they were to push everyone else away, we would begin to change. All of this is why they say, one person at a time, each one of us reaching out, making new choice. Now there's one more model that I want to introduce to you, because this is one that I actually just came up with. I think I told you. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question regarding the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you feel hurt by the actions of another person, even if that person is not really intending to hurt you? But I guess those actions change the things, how things are, and you're trying to forgive, you're having a hard time letting go of that, and you were just saying, forgive for yourself, not for the others, so that their actions are not affecting you. In that case, would removing yourself from that situation is maybe part of forgiving and just letting go?
Yes. I mean, the essence of all of this is if you're operating from the higher self and somebody else has wronged you, your job is merely this. Recognize how you feel, and I'm not saying you've really been wronged, but you may feel as though you've been wronged, right? Because that's how we're perceiving it. So my job would be to share with you, hey, you know what? I'm feeling hurt, and this event's made me feel like you didn't care or like you didn't love me. And then if that person is in a place where they can, well, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention, and you can work it out, you can get by it. If that person is out here in level 1 consciousness and they're like, well, what about you? You did this and this and this, and it instantly turns into that kind of thing, you're not going to get heard and you're not going to get your problem solved. So then you have a choice, right? Choice, experience, and perception. Your choice then is to say, you know what, I appreciate where you are and what's going on, but if you continue or if this persists, I'm not going to be able to be here, or I'm not going to be able to be in this because it causes me stress, and I love you, and I don't hold any ill will, I forgive you, or whatever, and you have a choice. Do you want to continue on if that person's not willing to understand where you're coming from and make a change, or not? So you have to choose based on their response to your request of, here's some information. What do you want to do with it? So things change. Everything changes. Your relationships change. Everything in this world changes. Every tree, every person grows. Every situation changes because that's how evolution occurs. Yes, ma'am.
On the same vein, sometimes other people are changing and wanting to be away from you, or not because of you, just because they're changing. And things are going different. They're going in a different direction. And that you're no longer wanted in their lives.
I understand where you're coming
So
from.
what happens is that the little things start happening to try to get you aggravated enough to create a situation so that they can stomp away and blame you. And
Right.
I'm not the bad guy.
Sure. So, and that is very often in life. If one person's operating from here and the other person is operating from here, what are the chances that that's going to work out? Slim. If two of you are walking along this way together, you have harmony. But all of a sudden one of you goes this way and the other one says, I don't want to go out there and let all this stuff upset me. Well, you should be mad. You should defend me. You should. Look, I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to start a fight that we can't win. So I choose not to let it bother me. That's more gravitating towards the inner circle. But that person then all of a sudden says, you don't love me, you don't trust me, you didn't defend me, I can't believe you did this, therefore, and they make up a story. They then have a perception that is out here. Now you can either help that person change that perception or you can't. You don't know. But the only way you're going to do it is through the choices that you make and the experiences that you and that person have together. So you can help that person indulge. I mean, if you really love them, this is one of the oldest adage. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it was yours. If it doesn't, it never was, right? And so what this relates to in the relationship equation that we're talking about, people get together, in my opinion, because they each have circles that are out of balance. Somebody that's out of balance mentally will get together with somebody that's out of balance physically, and the two of them will get together, and one of them will make the other one exercise and get them mentally in balance, and the person that's mentally balanced will help the other person start seeing things differently, and the two of them will heal each other. That's what relationships are for. Relationships are for us to grow. Relationships are for us to change. Not just for us to have this little nest egg. We're supposed to have problems. We're supposed to have difficulties. That's how we grow. Remember the girls at the ranch? Without their problems and without all of the experiences and the pain and the suffering and the misery that they had that they had caused all their families, they would have never been able to reach that internal higher understanding and that coping skills necessary to realize, you know what? I don't choose this anymore. I choose a new way. That's growth. And it can happen like this, or it can happen like this, or some people, they die cantankerously angry in their bed. It's all a matter of choice. So relationships bring us into new ways of thinking and feeling. That love relationship that holds us together is what allows us to have a fight and a misunderstanding and still wake up the next day and say, can we talk about this? And then you talk about it and you work it out, and then now you both have a new understanding and you've both grown from the experience. In the case scenario that you're talking about, your responsibility is to yourself first. You don't compromise your integrity, your beliefs, your thoughts, your philosophy. Now, that's not to say that you can't indulge this person. You know what? I understand you want to explore that, and I'm willing to go one time a week. I'll go with you, and we'll do this, and we'll try it and see how it goes. And if that's enough, then great. And if that's not enough, then you have a choice to make. Is this something you want to continue in? Most of us are creatures of fear. Most of us would continue on in this painful relationship. Why? Well, because we don't like change. We live in here. We don't want to imagine what it might be like to be on our own, to be alone, to be without, to be changing, to be different. We have fear. So we stay in this uncomfortable or in this outer place. And marriage and family therapy, when people come to me, this is what's occurred. They usually don't come to me until this has been going on for 3, 4, 5 years. How can we possibly bridge all the pain, all the hurt, all the suffering, like you just said? You start blaming each other to try and make the other person wrong so you can feel right about yourself, because we're all egocentric and we want to feel right. We want to feel good. So we want a reason for it to be the other person's fault. We want to point the finger. After 3 to 5 years of this going on, you have said some very mean, very nasty things to one another. You have taken trust that was bestowed because you were lovers. I've told you my deepest, darkest secrets. How could you hold that against me and use it like a weapon? And we have hurt one another. We have broken the bond of trust. And so it's very hard to regenerate and to repair and to put back together. And so in that way, that's where you have to come in and make your own choice as to what are you willing to accept, what are you willing not to accept, and you have to set your boundaries, and then you have to move on. Does that kind of make sense? So there is no easy answer. So the last one that I want to show you real quick before we get on to what's really going on is I was meeting, I think I can tell you about the situation without telling you a name. I was meeting with a woman in my office who had came to me because her life had gone completely sideways. After all these years of being a great person, after being married for 22 years, her husband had an affair, cheated on her, and they ended up getting divorced. At 40 some odd years old, she ended up becoming a barfly and going out, leaving her sons at home. She became a barfly, going out, getting drunk and getting picked up by various men and leading this life. She comes to me broken, and she comes to me destroyed because her guilt, because her life, because she doesn't want this life and she can't stop herself. She can't control it. She doesn't know what to do about it, on and on and on. in that moment, what I need you to understand is the same thing that I shared with her. I'm like, look, let me settle you down. If this is the tower of power, the building of life, each and every one of us comes born as souls, and we get a penthouse suite as our souls are pure babies. What happens is as we go through time and we experience all of this chaos on this paper, our soul starts getting heavier and it starts sinking down from the penthouse building. And what happens is most of us find someplace on the 4th or 5th level of the penthouse tower and we say, you know what? As long as people don't mess with my joy, as long as I can have my job and have my family and have a little bit of peace and happiness, I'll settle. I'm okay right here. Some of us, at given times, each one of you may have already done this. But there comes a time in our life when something fills us so heavy and so fully that we sink all the way to the basement. Now, when we're down in the basement of life, it's black, it's the abyss, it's depression. We feel powerless to change. We feel like we have no answers. We feel like we have nothing but chaos, pain, suffering, grief. There are no windows down here. We can't even see out to believe that another future possibility might exist for us. This is where she was when she came to see me. She was broken, she was a wreck, and she couldn't change, she couldn't help it. So, within the realm of this, I'm like, you know what? Let's just get to one or two little pieces of this darkness. Let's get rid of them. And so, we each get to pick what we can get rid of. Your guilt around your former relationship. He chose what he chose. You weren't a bad person. You weren't this. You weren't that. That was his choice. He did what he did. Okay, so you went out and you made some bad choices. Do you still want to make those choices? No. Okay, then guess who has the power to make different choices? Well, I do. Exactly. So, what you did is not who you are. That's just what you did. Right? We've all done something that we wish we hadn't. But in hindsight, is that not something that taught us who we were not and what we did not want in our life? So I say that it's powerful. It's uplifting. Because now we know who we're not. Now we know what we don't want in our world. It's helpful. It's part of the process. So, as you go through this process, when you are living in this chaos, you are living in the lower realms of the building of life. Your soul is heavy. It is dense. This is why the masters called this whole process enlightenment. What are you doing when you enlighten your soul? You are relieving yourself of the burdens. The Buddha called it suffering. He said we're all beings of suffering. We all suffer. And his whole process, his whole teaching, the path of the middle way, is about a consciousness training which allows you to see things differently and allows you to analyze your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own emotions, and start chucking away the negative ones that come from the dark or the ugly, the evil wolf, and start shriveling those so you can grow the good wolf. What's the good wolf? Love, acceptance, understanding, forgiveness, all the positive qualities that you've ever been taught anywhere you've ever been. And as you grow the good wolf, your soul becomes lighter and starts rising up out of the cellar, out of the basement. Right? You've all been down here at some point, I imagine. We all have. And as we come up, then we find levels of acceptance. Oh, I'm okay here. Just don't take me back down to that dark place. And then we have a few more experiences and we change our mind and we get a little more enlightened. We go up another level, up another level, up another level. What Jesus and Buddha and all the other masters were trying to teach us is this is the natural descending from heaven, come to the earth, and rise back up. Enlightenment is you reacquiring the penthouse of life by unburdening your soul, by getting rid of all the dark, negative, bad energy that you carry around inside of you every single day. Your pain, your suffering, your grief, your negativity, all your reasons to not like yourself, all your reasons to think you're a bad person, all your reasons to think that nobody loves you or that you're unlovable or that you're not this or you're not that. Those are all stories that you made up and you're living in because you're in the darkness. You're listening to the evil, the black wolf that sits on your shoulder. That's what I'm here to teach you. Stop it. You don't have to live there. You have a choice. You can choose to perceive that you're worth it. You can choose to perceive that you are a child of God and that you have been through enough hell in your life and you decide, no more. I want to elevate. I want that penthouse. And as George Jefferson and Wheezy, we're moving on up, right? And the whole conversation is about you figuring out. This is why salvation cannot be given. I cannot give you enlightenment. I can only teach you how to find it. You cannot be taken from here. You have to choose to fight and climb the stairs to get out of the cellar. And climb the stairs to get up to the first floor. And climb the stairs to get up to the second floor. And climb the stairs to get up to the... and so on. I'm telling you, there is a point in consciousness when you actually make that connection with your higher self, when you actually come to realize that there is a pure soul energy of light and love that lives inside of you. There's an elevator that exists about right here. And you don't have to climb the stairs anymore because all you have to do is make a new choice. You know what? I understand that this stuff happens. But I'm not going to let it bother me because it's just stuff. That's why they say, S happens. It does. Right? And if I know that it happens, and I expect that it's going to happen, or if I just allow it to happen, my choice is very simple. Right here. That happened. That's not cool. What do I want to do about it? I don't know. What are my choices? Well, I have several choices. Okay, what is it that I want to experience out of this? Okay, if I want to experience this, what do I need to choose in order to make this happen? It's that simple. Do you see how easy this is when I break it down to you like this? You have choice over how you feel. You have choice over your emotions. You have choice in how you let others impact you. But when you're down here in the basement or in the cellar, or when your soul is too heavy to see that, you don't believe it. And you choose to believe that you don't. And that's when you become the victim. That's when you become stuck in a rut. That's when you have problems and you have no power. You've lost your power, right? You've heard these metaphors tons and tons of times. Now you understand what I'm talking about and what they were talking about when they explained it. The whole goal, the whole deal is you have to work your way out of the trenches. You say, how do I do that? I say, what do you want? Make a new choice. And if you make a new choice and you start getting what you want, your perception of yourself and others will start changing. And then it's an upward spiral. Then, instead of living out here on the outer edge and occasionally drifting inside and being pulled back out, you are actually living on the inside and you're occasionally drifting in. Hey, you know what? That wasn't so bad after all. That's the place in consciousness that we're trying to get. This is the higher mind, and this is what this program is all about. So what is the higher mind? The higher mind is this divine brain. They call it the subtle organ through which truth and understanding are immediate and spontaneously known by you. If you stop and get your ego out of the way, and this is what you don't know. We all have an ego on one shoulder and we have our soul. We have Satan, a devil on one shoulder, and we have an angel on the other, right? We all do this. This is the dichotomy. This is the duality of life that was taught to us from the very beginning. Thou shalt eat from the tree of good and evil. This is our life. This is our mission. This is what earth is for us to live this mission, the duality. That means we have to experience it. Do you know what evil is? Live spelled backwards. In order for you to live, you have to experience evil. Once you have lived, do you know what lived spelled backwards is? Devil. Do you think that's a coincidence? I think not. All of this, we all have to overcome, every single one of us, the devil inside, right? That's the ego. When we talk about this circle, and people want to know what the ego is, when you're first born and you come down into this tower, you are pure spirit. As you live life, your parents, your family, your friends, your teachers, others. Remember being picked on when you were a little kid? Remember being made fun of? Remember being told by your parents, bad girl, bad boy, you're no good, this, that, and the other, you're stupid, blah, blah, blah. That is what started filling your soul and making you descend from the tower, the penthouse. You started then developing an ego. What is an ego? An ego is how you perceive yourself. You think you're to this, to that, not this, not that, not enough of this, not enough of that. We make up stories about ourselves, and we call it ego. Our ego, if you put ego on this circle, this would be the line of balance. Not too much, not too little. This is the place where Jesus would say, humble your soul, humble your spirit. It's a line of balance, right? Not too much, not too little. If this is ego, this over here with way too much, if this is where I am, I'm a complete narcissist. I am the only one who matters. The rest of you can get behind me. I am all important. My way or the highway. This is my world. Everything that goes on is all about me. Right? Entitlement, you know this type. And it can be in any degree, of course, around moving. On the other side of the coin, over here, if this is a narcissist, what do we have to the person who has too little ego or is devoid of it? We have complete and total depression and despair. This is the person that has trouble getting out of bed. This is the person that doesn't want to live because life has no meaning and value, and if it does, it's only to torture me. I'm sure of it. I've made this up in my mind, and that's my story. That then becomes my perception. And if I perceive that my life has no meaning or no value or no worth, what are my choices going to be? I'm going to choose not to participate in life. And if I'm not participating in life, and if I'm not out there making choices that make me happiness and bring me happiness and expand me, what is my experience going to be? My life is going to be miserable, and I'm going to be completely creating my own unhappiness and not even know it. Right? This is how it rolls. So, within the realm of all of this, we have to climb out of the basement. And then we have to start seeing, oh my God, I made progress. I've gotten this far. I can do it. I can go further. Thomas the Train, right? I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Well, that's the positive energy. That's the positive thought that we're looking for. Ultimately, what we're looking for to recapsulate this penthouse is to get rid of all of our guilt, to get rid of all of the things we call sin. You know what sin actually stands for, definitionally? Sin is something that separates you from God. So if your soul is originally part of, or connected to, or is a version of, whatever you want to look at it, God, as we fall, all the things we do, every bad choice, every lie, every theft, every this, every that, everything that they consider to be sin, is just stuff that separates us from our divine, our creator, our source. The whole process that we live through this life is to release our guilt, to release our fear, to release our anxiety, to release all of the things that we think are so important out there on this outer circle that are ruining our lives. Absolutely. We believed a false story. And you know who that somebody usually is? The self in the form of the ego. That's the biggest liar. They say Satan is a liar, right? That's him. You're not good enough. You can't do that. You'll never be loved. No one will ever care about you. Your life is over. It's miserable. Or on the other side of the coin, hey, you know what? Bow down and worship me and I'll give you the whole world. Those are the kind of lies that we would hear if we were working in the area of ego. So, all this awareness emerging from this original identity, carrying the truths that we hold about ourselves. We each make a perception, a story about who we are. We decide how we fit in friends. We decide what type of friends we're worthy to hang around. We decide what kind of job we think we can have and cannot have. We decide how far we think we can go in school. We decide, and we do this all based on what we've created as our own self-perception, our ego. And through this, our own original identity on the penthouse top floor is what we're striving and working to attain higher mind and return to as we expedite all the negativity and all this other stuff out of our lives that we don't want. So in this, all of this is about formulating your own self-power of this idea, so you realize that this character inside of you needs to be the one in control of your mind. This needs to be how you think and who you think from, who you see as your guiding source, your guiding light, your higher power, your inner self. Your soul has a voice begging you to listen to it. It'll be okay. We can do this. I believe in you. Just try. It'll be all right. That voice is the one we need to listen to. But we're so used to hearing this voice. It'll never work. Why bother? And in that mindset, am I even going to try? No. So how could I possibly succeed if I'm not willing to try because I'm believing this voice? And so I'm trying to encourage you to listen to the voice, the higher voice, the inner voice, the higher self, the white wolf, the good wolf. And so with this kind of thinking is what emerges, this original spiritual identity reemerges, and this is the whole story of the phoenix emerging from the ashes. Do you see it? It's about you recreating yourself. It's okay that you're down here. We all get down here. I've been down in the cellar so many times in my life, but I stand here before you right now teaching you this because I've had to pull my broken self out of the cellar so many times that I know this is true. It is my own life and my own pain and my own suffering which has led me to stand here and teach this to you because I don't want you to suffer like I did. I was my captor. I was the one who beat myself half to death, telling myself how bad I was and how much I sucked, while I was going around in my ego life trying to make everybody think how great I was and how together I was and how we all do that, right? You have our facades, our personas. I'm fine. Oh my God, really, if this person knew how broken I was, they would just hug me. But we can't admit that because that would be weakness, right? And what happens with authenticity? What we find out is other humans, if they really knew the truth, they wouldn't scourge us the way we scourge ourselves. They would be like, oh, you poor thing, come here. And that's really what we want anyway, but we're too afraid to ask for it because we're afraid they'll see us as being weak, right? This is why we, as community, have to work together, and we have to grow, and we have to lift each other up. This is the power of friends and family. So with this inner voice that whispers to us when we need advice, that's who I want you to hear. It's this life force that sustains this body and the soul. It's the power of compassion that beats in every one of our hearts and our spiritual discernment. Each and every one of us, we know right from wrong, but yet something inside of us makes us choose wrong anyway, right? We know good from evil. We've lived in it. We've seen it. Yet something in our mind, I'm going to rationalize this away and do this anyway, right? We do this. We all do this. You're not alone. It's part of life. But there's a place inside of your mind and inside of your consciousness and inside of your spirit that can analyze, well, you know what? Let me stop for a minute. What do I want to happen? What do I want to experience? If I make the choice that I'm sitting here thinking about making right this very second, is it going to bring me what I want to experience? Or is it really only going to bring me more pain and suffering later? And this is the same story that this woman and I met with and talked about. Every time she made the choice, she wanted to be held. She wanted to be felt like she was loved. And so she would go out and go drinking to numb herself to the point where she could be with a man sexually, only so she could be held. So she felt loved for even just this long. And the whole conversation that we're all having is, isn't that really what we all want? We all just want to be loved, little babies in mommy's arms, and we all want to be loved. And within this, the whole conversation is, well, if you really want that, what happens? What's the experience when you choose to go do this? Oh my God, I feel so bad about myself the next day. I hate myself. Are you getting the love that you really want to feel and experience? No. Do you think maybe we should consider making a different choice? Yes. And that's how we break habits. That's how we change patterns. That's how we begin to see that our choices don't always align with the experiences that we want. It is our misguided perceptions that are making these choices, not the soul, not the higher self. You know, I told you before once, ask yourself, if I made these choices from the best part of me, what would love do? And if you made the choice from love, you might make a different choice than if you made it from fear, or if you made it from anger, or if you made it from hurt, pain, suffering, right? And that's what this whole program is about, to make you aware of this process. So when you go home and you start having these choices, you say, wait a minute, now what was it that guy was saying? Something about, I need to see, this is what I want to happen. What choice do I need to make this happen? How am I seeing this that's making me want to even decide which one of these choices? Do I need to change the way I'm looking at this? Maybe. And that's what this process is about. And so anytime you have doubt, anytime all of this, it all comes down to your ability to cope with change, to cope with your own mistakes, to cope with your own choices. There is no choice made on this earth that can't be made again. If you make the wrong choice, so be it. Own it, know it. You know what? I chose poorly. I want to choose again, and now I choose this. You always have that choice. You make 70,000 choices a day and don't even know it. If you consciously make your choices, your life will go a whole lot better than if you unconsciously make your choices out of the evil wolf, out of fear, out of anger, out of negativity, out of the negative mind. Do you see this? If your negative mind is in control, operating the center of your being, all the choices that you make are going to lead you down the express elevator. If, on the other hand, you stop and say, wait, I want these choices to be made by the Spirit, by the love in me, by the positive me. He's in there. You just have to feed him enough to make him grow big enough that you can hear his voice. And as you feed this one, you starve this one and it starts to shrink. I used to hate myself. I don't anymore. And that's a choice. All of this process then starts the elevator going in the opposite direction. And that's what I want you to know. Higher mind is the light that shows us the way in this material world. As if a single point of star in the light, or as a single grain of sand on the beach, there are millions and billions of us, and we all operate in relation to one another and don't even know it. We're all part of the same beach. We're all part of the same starry sky. We are the human race. We are what we create on this planet. We all operate off of each other. We have friends that lift us up. We have enemies that try to push us down. We have situations and events, all of which are merely things that are reflecting what's going on inside of you at that given time. The universe is a mirror. If you are at peace, if you are the Buddha, you are sitting under the lotus tree, happiness and joy. Bad things aren't coming your way. Why? Because he is radiating nothing but positive and love. Jesus walked and birds would land on his shoulder. Why? Because there was no negativity in him anywhere to be found. This is the whole conversation of co-creation, of building, which is what we're getting into next week. So within this, all of this, there's a doorway which each one of us has to pass through, that we grow and that we learn and that we start understanding this, and we become sentient, we become conscious, we become aware, we become self-aware. Now in the Bible, this is a very simple conversation. Paul, on the road to Damascus, goes along and he was Saul, he became Paul. All these prophets talk about, oh, ye who overcomes the first death will not die of the second death. What are they talking about in all of this? What they're talking about is they're talking about this ego identity, this ego self that lives within all of us, that ultimately is what makes us live out here. And as we move in and put on the higher self, we end up seeing the world completely different. We see our problems completely different. We make completely different choices. We have completely different reactions to other people's influences on us, which makes us have a happier life. You can be as angry with me as you want, and I'll sit here and smile and say, I am so sorry you are so upset. You will not disturb me unless I choose to be disturbed. Do you understand how powerful you are? But what would most people do? Back off, get out of my face, and start yelling back. Well, now you've done exactly what you wanted to do. You've disturbed me. Isn't that the same thing we do in relationships? We start to have a fight and the other person gets angry, and what do we want to do? Oh, you did not. Well, take this. And it becomes a battle to see who can out-hurt, out-yell, out-scream, out-maneuver. And we think that the loudest one, last one wins. Lie. This is a story we tell ourselves. What's the truth? The truth is, the more further we go into it, the worse we've hurt the relationship. The truth is, the further we go into it, the more we've actually created separation, when what we claim to want is togetherness. Why do we do such things? Because we listen to the wrong voice. The ego wants that, not the spirit, not love. So, with all of this culminates into our past, our future, our present. All of this is controlled by the decisions that we make. What happened to us in the past made us who we are. In that right now moment, I make choices based on who I think I am, based on the past. And guess what that makes my future? In a line, dragging this weight behind me everywhere I go, every choice I make is contingent upon the stuff that happened in the past that I'm still carrying along. And so in the future, if you don't want to take this stuff with you, you have to cut it loose. You have to let yourself see it, recognize it. Oh my God, I'm not this fat little abandoned kid that my daddy didn't love. That's a story I made up. Really, I'm a good guy and I have lots of potential. I should go and explore that. And my life just changed because I was willing to cut a cord and let something go. Each one of us has such a cord that we trail around in our self-image, in our self-esteem, in our thoughts, in our perception about ourselves. Yes, ma'am, did you have a question?
Yeah, we all try to learn from our mistakes, which means we can forgive, but we can't forget. And we're trying not to make the same mistake again. And in not making that mistake again, you're carrying the baggage of experience. But we need to carry some of the baggage because we can't just go out and pretend things didn't happen.
Let me interrupt you because I know where you are, but I'm gonna contingent that.
Yes.
If I'm a little kid and I put my hand on the stove, I learned a lesson, and at that time I have the baggage of a scar on my hand forever. I don't need to carry the baggage of that scar. What I need to carry with me is the lesson that I learned from that scar, which is don't touch hot things, right? That's what we need to carry forward. We don't have to carry the baggage. The baggage is the story that we make up about what happened. What happened happened. Did we learn something? Do we know something about ourselves? Did it shape us? Did it create us? Did it grow us? Did it make us stronger? Did it make us have to toughen up? Did it make us have to stop being such a pleaser and saying yes to everyone all the time when really it's just making us crazy? And we need to say, no, I would love to help you, but I can't. Right? Our experiences teach us these things that then change our life, evolve our life. So I say, you don't need to carry the baggage. You need to carry the lesson. And the lesson is what we call wisdom. And that's all it is. The more experiences you have, the more wise you probably are. The more wisdom you have attained. Because you have lived it. You understand it. I can tell you what love is. Well, love is this emotion. It's a human emotion. It's kind of a fondness. You could never understand what love is unless you experienced it for yourself. Because what you know, just like every one of us comes to find out, is love resides on a circle. It has as many definitions as you could make points on this circle. You could describe and define love. Love is something that's so fantastic and so wonderful, but it can also suck so bad and hurt you so much. Wait, why would I want that? Because when you have it, it's really so good. I would sound like a schizophrenic trying to describe what love is, right? The truth of the matter is that you have to experience it to really understand what it is. Such is the case with pain. Ow, that hurts. Versus, oh my God, or it hurts so bad I'm unconscious. Pain has so many different levels. Emotional pain hurts worse than physical pain. How's that possible? Because that's just a state of mind. I'm making that happen inside of me. My own volcano. I stepped on a landmine, triggered a thought, and now I would rather have a knife in my back than be experiencing the emotions that I'm currently experiencing. Tell me how that's possible.
I have a question. How does that pertain with forgiving and forgetting to like sexual abuse or childhood abuse? I mean, with forgiving and forgetting, you cannot forget that.
No.
Never. It won't go away.
Here's the deal with something the traumas in our life, right? And it doesn't matter whether you were hit by a car, paralyzed, whether you were raped, abused, molested, whether you were born with a defect. All of these things are what's so. And yes, sad, hurt, painful, but they go on to create something inside of us and who we are. Our deal is still the same. How do we perceive the event? What choices do we make based on that perception? What experiences are we having? What experiences do we want to have? Do you want to be free from it? Then you have to make choices.
It's kind of like learning to help other people learn to do the same thing.
Absolutely. So, forgive. The reason that we would forgive in a situation like that is not for them, it's for you. I mean, sure. I mean, these types of things are this dance is right on the line of, wow, you almost have to be in here to even begin to understand the answer to that question. Because out here, how could you? Because damn it, that's what happened and there should be this, and that's something you could learn to carry around with you for the rest of your life. Yes, ma'am.
I think that person, whoever abused you on the incident, it's weighted down. You have to get above it and then take a look at the situation, and then you say, I forgive that person for being in that position, and then you feel sorry for that person, not for yourself. You're the one who is endured. You're the one who can emerge strong.
That's absolutely correct. And once you can get to a consciousness of yourself where you realize, you know what? Carrying this around with me for the rest of my life is only going to cause me more pain, more suffering. It's time for me to cut it loose. And whether that be the death of a loved one. I mean, any situation you can imagine that you could label as traumatic. Divorce, a breakup, all of these things we think are life-ending and could kill us because of what we're making it mean to us. Oh my God, this was my whole world, now it's over. Or oh my God, this was so terrible, I'll never heal, I'll never be better. Well, that too is a perception that I would urge to release, to let go. So accessing the higher mind is about elevating personal consciousness and your own self-awareness. Becoming personally aware of how you think about these two voices that live inside of you and learning how to tune into this one and tune out this one. All of this is a process that requires you to traverse the mind. This is exactly what I've drawn you. All the stuff I'm going to give you, these definitions are not mine. These definitions are from various masters' teachings, and I'm going to use Kabbalistic teachings, if you know this is Jewish mysticism, for the rest of this. But I want you to understand, I didn't make this up. I'm showing you how it fits on my circle. And so accessing higher mind, this, is all about elevating personal consciousness and self-awareness, meaning you have enough time out here that you get into this. And what do you have to do to get there? You have to traverse, which means pass through, mind. You have to undo your negative mind in order to get to the real you. You have to overcome your false beliefs in order to get to the real you. You have to leash and let go of your own ego identity to get to the real you, the higher mind, the you that you were born with and before anything bad ever even happened to you. That you still resides inside of you. The other you has been created over time as a construct that you have put up as your own defense mechanism, as your own perception of how the rest of the world sees you, of how you want to be seen, is how you act and be. Are you being true? Are you being who you want to be? Or are you pleasing everybody, really going, oh my God, I can't believe I got to do this again and again and again, really being miserable on the inside? Oh yes, dear, I'll be happy to do that for you. But really what you want to say is, no, dude, I'm out. The real you is the voice you need to listen to, even in either direction. It doesn't matter which way we go. So, teaching of higher mind from Kabbalah. The primary reason for existence is to play the game of life that I've explained to you here. A very serious game of how much light and energy we can bring back from our original state when we originally came here. This is directly out of the teachings of Kabbalah. This is exactly what I explained to you in the Tao. Bring back the light that we are originally born and given with. This realization can be difficult to absorb into our daily consciousness because oftentimes we forget our soul's purpose is not governed by the extraneous outside world things, the material things that we put into our lives, but rather the fact that while we're here on earth, we are accountable for our own actions to our own Creator. How many of you have kids? Do you still hold your child in disrespect or in disdain? Are you mad at them because they broke a vase in your house 5 years ago? Of course not. Are you still mad at them because they lied to you when you asked them who ate the candy? Of course not. In the same way, we people believe in our pathology. We're so egocentric. We believe God wouldn't dare forgive us for all the sins that we've done. He wouldn't dare let us back into the gates of heaven for all the bad stuff I've done. This too is the same situation. That same loving parent understands. You know what? You said you wanted to know. This is it. Good and evil. Now you know it. Which do you choose? To be good or to be evil? Which do you choose? To be filled with ego and all the pain and suffering and hardships that come when things don't go your way? Or to be spiritual and realize that all this is nothing but one great big game and I just have to learn how to play better? Yes, ma'am.
Would you define God as religion? Because I don't define God as an other, nor as a judge, nor as a father,
Okay,
nor as an out there, nor as a man.
And I was being more metaphoric.
Okay.
The bottom line is that, real quick, a person once asked me, what do you think God is? And this is the best way I can describe it. If God were the ocean, and you were to row a boat out into the middle of the ocean, and take a cup, and dip it into the ocean and pull it out, you would have a cup of ocean that is not the ocean, but is of the ocean. And then if you were to do this 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000 times, you would have all these different looking cups, all these different shapes and sizes of cups, and they would all be contained with a portion of God, ocean, but they would not be God, ocean. And then if you were to take all of these cups and you were to let them exist in all different climates and all different things and experience all these different things, and then you were to take these cups and you were to collect them all back and you were to row back out into the middle of the ocean and take these cups and dump them back into the ocean, reuniting them with the rest of the ocean, you would now have the same ocean, only now it would be enriched from all of the additions that each one of the souls brought back from experience and from personality and events and things. That would be the best metaphor I could give you to describe God. I believe it is a consciousness, a pure energy, a pure thought, a pure consciousness of which each one of us has a portion inside of us as soul. That's my belief.
I agree with that. And there's a book by Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God.
Mm-hmm.
One answers, that's the book you read.
Okay? So our primary reason for existence is to learn how to play this game. And that's why they call it the game of life. The Bible says, know from where you came, know from where you will go, and know to whom you must report. The whole conversation with this is what we understand from these words is that in order for us to stay focused on the bigger picture of purpose, in order for us not to get saturated in the humdrum pain, suffering, and misery out here in level 1 stuff, if we get caught up in this, it's a spiral. It has gravity. It'll keep us in it. How many of you know people that are drama queens or kings? How many of you know people that create it when they can't find it or don't see it or don't have it? How many of you are those people? All this conversation is that that's what this is talking about. If you keep yourself focused on the higher prize, the higher source, the goal, you will always constantly be striving to move to the next level. Because complacency is a killer, because once you stop trying to grow, you're going to sit right where you are. You're always have lessons to learn, things to do, and the next level for you to achieve. So as much as we may know what are responsible for our own happiness, each one of us has trouble holding on to it. That's the challenge in life. Why? Because we think it's conditional upon things going our way. We think happiness is conditional upon how someone else treats us, on what we're given, on our material possessions, on our financial status. Well, let me tell you, I know people with absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I used to run a division of MHMRA with street people, giving them mental health services. They had nothing. They were some of the happiest individuals on the planet. You don't have to look far here in the Woodlands, Texas to see someone who has everything, but is the most unhappy individual you've ever met in your life. Happiness is this internal condition. And that's what I need you to grasp and take hold of, because you're responsible for your own happiness and you can create it inside yourself. So one of the ways we can create more stability is to not allow these external circumstances mess with our world. It's just what happened. It's just what's so. Okay, it's curveball. Now what do I do? Have to make a new choice. So we can't get too upset with people or situations, because both of these things are powerless if you have no reaction. Change is always possible. It's not the kind of change where we restrict our negative impulses for a few weeks, months, or years. I'm talking about the real change at the gut internal level where you just make a decision. You know what? I am not going to be bullied anymore. And you stand up for yourself. You know what? I am not going to be a pleaser and take everyone and give to everyone without considering myself. Whatever you decide, that change can happen instantaneously in a choice that you adhere to. That's all you have to do to make lasting change. Choose and stay with the choice. Who gets to choose whether you stay with it? You do. If you listen to this voice, you will. If you listen to this voice, what will you do? You won't believe you have the power. You won't believe you have the strength. You won't believe you can. And therefore, I tried. And you'll quit. You are the one in control. You need to take the control and you need to make the choices. So, have you ever noticed that that you get a good boost of energy when you commit to some kind of change, and then all of a sudden you get that initial high, and then all of a sudden it wears off? How many of you started working out and you felt great about yourself and were so proud of yourself because you worked out? And then all of a sudden what happens? Well, something got in the way. Well, my friend called. Well, this happened. And now all of a sudden you're not as excited about it, and it seems to be more work and you barely have the time. So what do? We quit going to the gym. We quit working out. And we lose that initial energy and boost. And then things come back. So the whole point is that when the initial high wears off, we find ourselves right back to where we started, fighting the same tendencies that we were fighting before. That's not change. That's temporary, right? We're talking about lasting change. So Kabbalah teaches that there is a formula to create this lasting change in your life. Letting go of the past, the stuff that you thought, the stuff that you believed, the baggage that you're carrying, and relinquishing your destructive, reckless traits that are created by this negative egoic mind. Committing to replacing those behaviors that weren't working for you with a new proactive one that does. If you're not getting where you want to get doing what you're doing, you need to make a different choice. Isn't that what this is saying? Choose what will get you there. resisting this longing for this energy that once gratified your ego when we're in a lower, more primal state of being. Basically, when we're out here on level 1 consciousness and we start moving in and things start getting tough, we are naturally pulled outward. This is saying, resist the urge to return to the way things were, what you've been used to your whole life, what you've been called normal. Resist the urge to allow yourself to get pulled back. So the whole conversation is, don't look back. I had a girl in my office yesterday who we've been working on issues with her father. And of this, she always wanted his approval. She went off and then did a bunch of things and had a bunch of things happen to her, and she goes and she tells her dad about these things. Her dad then goes and tells his partner, and his partner then tells some of the people in the restaurant that they work at. She went to work at the restaurant and started noticing people were talking about her and pointing fingers at her and found out that he had shared this information. And now here she was crying and distraught because all she wanted was her dad to approve of her, to pat her on the back. And here he was telling everybody about her misdeeds and about, oh, my daughter, she got drunk, got a DUI, did this, did that. And so she's crushed. So our whole conversation was about coming to the process with this where she understood, you're the one who gave him that information. You're the one that carried these bad things, your past, forward by sharing them with your dad and by putting them out there. He misused them, and now you're suffering again, carrying it forward. So what should you do at this point? She's talking about going to graduate school in another state now. So what do I say to her? Don't tell people about this stuff. That's your personal business. Let it go. It taught you. You're not drinking and driving anymore, are you? No? Okay. So let that be part of your past. Don't look back. Make a new behavior and move on. So just as a recovering alcoholic must always resist the drink, we have to view ourselves as recovering egoholics who must unceasingly defy these temptations and the trappings of our past and this voice that wants to draw us back to our old patterns and our old behaviors, because we get in the comfort zone and then all of that, we succumb back to this old voice and everything that we've worked for is undone in a heartbeat, and we say, see, I knew I wasn't good enough. I knew I couldn't do this. I knew I wasn't strong enough. And we start getting into the game of rationalizing and all the other different ego strategies. So, yet, all of this, it's so important to remember that if we do slip off the path, that's okay. Because all you have to do is recognize that you slipped off the path and then get back on it. I tell people all the time, just like I told this woman about the tower. I'm like, hey, you know what? And I forgive you right now when the next time you go out and have a drink and end up going and being with somebody else. I forgive you. It's part of the process. You're going to fall. What we're going to do is work to make you stronger, to make the amount of time in between your falls longer and longer and longer and longer and longer until it doesn't happen anymore. It's okay to slip. It's okay to fall. You just have to get back on the path. So there's a very powerful energy in this cosmos that will provide assistance in severing all the ties of any of this negative, selfish behavior. This is what they call the power, the gift of the Spirit. Anything you want to term it, anything you want to call it, the power of your soul, the power of God, God working in mysterious ways. All of these things are connected to this energy that ultimately wants to help you overcome darkness and negativity. The ancients have talked all the way back since the Sumerians about this ongoing battle between light and dark. These two forces. We're part of that same battle. We're in the same battle. We have both inside of us. We need to recognize it, and we need to take charge and be our own champion and choose the one that serves us. So, don't look back, let the old go, and instead look forward, and you will see what you are meant to become. If you want to be something, if you want to achieve something, all you have to do is determine what that something is, and then make yourself a stairway of choices and obstacles that you have to do to get there. If you want to go back to school and get a PhD, I did it at 40. 42, I don't even know how old. All of this is, well, what do I need to do? Well, I'm going to have to go retake some math classes because I haven't had math forever. I'm going to have to go pass this stupid GRE examination. I'm then going to have to take an extra class next summer. I'm then going to have to start making some applications and start enrolling. I'm then going to have to get accepted and get all these materials. I'm then going to have, there's a bunch of steps that you have to do it. Not to mention quit your jobs and quit your life and take 5 years off just so you can do nothing but study and become a bookworm, right? All these things are choices, and if you're not willing to make those choices, don't make that choice, because what are you doing? You're setting yourself up for failure. If you're not willing to do what it takes to get what you want, don't choose it. Realize some of the choices that we make are because other people want us to choose that. They're not even our choices. I didn't want to be a football player. My dad wanted it for me. This is the kid who gets burned out and never ends up going to college, and he was the high school football star because he blah, 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 blah. He didn't want it. He was doing it for somebody else. We all have this experience, these feelings. Excuse me. So with this, the Bible tells Abraham to go out, leave this place. According to the Kabbalists, leaving one's house is code for creating a new beginning. Get out of your comfort zone. Stop following the patterns and the things that you've been doing. If you want to create something new, you're going to have to break your patterns. You're going to have to break your habits. You're going to have to change and leave your comfort zone. You're going to have to face fear. All the reasons that you have why you shouldn't. What if? What if? What if? What if? Would have, could have, should have. All of these things are thoughts that don't serve us. They're from the negative mind. So how does this apply to us? We know that making decisions to change is important, but unless we do something about it, the change cannot occur. If you want to lose weight, but you're not willing to exercise and stop eating cheeseburgers, you're going to have trouble. If you want to overcome anything, depression, anxiety, you're going to have to find peace, calm. You're going to have to address different things in your life. You're going to have to make change that aren't comfortable. If you want to heal a relationship, you're going to have to go outside of what you normally have been doing that has caused where you are in the relationship, and you're going to have to make change, new choices. So all of this, you need to be okay with the fact that you may not know how the conversation's going to go. You may not know the outcome, how it's going to unfold. You need to understand that that is faith. You have faith that, you know what, this needs to change. I know it needs to change, so I'm going to take this step. Come hell or high water, I'll take whatever comes my way, but I want this to change. And then you have confidence and you make the choice. So our job is not to know the specific outcome of every situation. I don't know what's going to happen every time I think I'm going to control a situation. The only thing I can really control is how I respond to whatever happens. I can get upset, I can be mad, I can be hurt, I can be irritated, I can be sad, I can be pumped up, filled with ego. I get to choose how I feel, how I respond, how I act. So all of this, positive or negative, actually all of your own consciousness and the outcome is determined by you. That's what this is all about. Whether you experience something as being good or bad is up to you. Whether it ruins your life or whether it makes you start a new life, for all you know, you were on the wrong path, and this is just your soul or spirit's way of saying, hey, you know what? I started off in the business world. I was a self-made millionaire by 35, and by 36 I was divorced and not. And it was then that I went back to school, followed my original degree plan, which was psychology, and went back into doing this, and now I stand here before you, and, as opposed to living in my mansion out in Colorado in the hills, because I was on the wrong path. But it took me a lot of pain and suffering to get here, right? But I accepted the transition, I accepted the change. I said, okay, here's where we are, here's where we're going. Each one of us has those same crossroads in our lives. Do we fight to stay where we are and, oh my God, I can't believe I'm losing everything, and have misery? Or do we stop and assess and say, okay, what are my choices? Where do I really want to go? If I had no fear, if I had no ties, no connections, what would I choose? That's how you find out what your soul wants. If there was no fear involved, what would you choose? Those are the things you need to be looking at. So with all of this, it's imperative to you and your well-being that you give yourself permission to walk away from all the things that are hurting you. If your relationship is hurting you, you make the effort to change it, and if you can't, you have to give yourself permission to walk away from it. Because you don't control the other person. You only control you. That's just how it is. If you're in a bad job and you're tied and connected to the money or the situation, and it's hurting you, it's causing you mental anguish, you're losing your marbles because you can't stand the stress, you need to realize if you can't correct the situation, you need to walk away from it. Something else is out there for you. It will find you. It will come. That's the way this works. Most of us don't, because we're too afraid of change, of what if? Well, what if not? What if you find the perfect job? What if you find the perfect partner? What if you find the perfect life? And the only thing stopping you is you and your fear of what if. That's what we do. As humans, we get complacent. We get settled. Right? So, this goes for people, places, jobs, and especially our own behaviors. No one else can take all of this negativity and take you out of it and take it out of you. You are the only one who can relinquish your negativity. No priest, no teaching, no spiritual training, no master can take negativity away from you. It resides in your mind and it resides in your heart. You have to recognize it, you have to acknowledge it, and then you have to choose to eradicate it, to cut it out, to stop following it, to stop listening to it, to stop feeding it, to stop growing it. This is your responsibility. This is why Jesus taught that each one of us was to work out our own salvation. This is what he was talking about. The body is the temple and the kingdom is within. What are we talking about? We're talking about getting back to the kingdom, right? And it's about getting rid of our negativity, our darkness. It's about shrinking the evil wolf and expanding the white wolf. So no one else can take this away from you. What you do in your own well-being, all of this, you can start filling these spaces with things that lift you up. Get rid of your negative habits. Get rid of worrying about something and instead figure out, well, what good could come of this? What if you were just to make that one change right there? If instead of focusing, oh my God, what if this, if this happens, I'm going to be devastated. If you got rid of focusing on all the negative possibilities of every situation or choice you made, and instead, oh my God, if I did this, then I could have this, and then I could go there, and then this might happen, and this might happen. If you focused on all those positive, what do you think would happen? You would make choices that would associate with these positive things. You would get excited about them. You would try to make them happen. And guess what would happen then? They would. But we don't. Oh my God, what if? Well, if I do this, if I take this chance, and it could cost me everything. And so we don't. What changes? Nothing. What's still punishing us? Everything that was before. What's still causing us misery and suffering? Everything that was before. We haven't changed anything because we're afraid of change. Isn't that crazy? We want change, but we fear it. And so we don't make the choices that we need to make in order to acquire the change we desire. So, one of the worst diseases is caused by the ego is to please others. I'm not saying that you should be about yourself. That is not the lesson that I'm teaching. When we stop trying to impress, when we stop trying to be something we're not, when we stop trying to pretend, when we stop putting up false airs of, well, this is the way everybody wants me to be, my family's always needed me to be the rock, and when we stop being all of these things, we start finding our true self, and we understand, we experience freedom. In that very moment, you will have darkness lifted. You will rise in the tower. Just by doing that one simple thing. Be true to yourself, right? You've heard this? This is what they're talking about. Be who you are. Be true to yourself. Be okay with you. Stop trying to pretend you're someone you're not. Stop trying to pretend that you need to impress. Stop thinking you need to impress. Stop trying to please everyone. Do you know how impossible it is for me to please every single one of you? Let's say I have one decision to make. Somebody's going to be irritated, probably 18 of you. 1 or 2 of you will like the decision. That's life. You cannot please everyone, but yet we try, because we're control freaks, right? And we're trying to make everything do this. So the whole situation is be true to yourself and who you are. Stop trying to impress. 98% of our suffering comes because the ego wants to look good. I want you to think I'm smart. I want you to think I'm handsome and intelligent. I want you to think I'm special. I want you to think all these things about me. I want my church friends to think this. I want my school friends to think this. I want my work friends to think this. I want my drinking buddies to think this. I want my sports buddies to think this. And I put on all these hats and try to be all these different things to all these people. We all do that. They're called our personas. No wonder we're crazy. We don't know who we really are because we're afraid to be us. We're afraid to just show, you know what? Take me or leave me. Love me or not. This is who I am. This is how I am. Some good, some bad. And I'm not afraid and I'm not defensive. You may point out the bad. You know what? That's not such a good habit you have there, Mr. Kennedy. I'm aware of that. Thank you. That's it. I'm aware. Thank you for sharing. All right. So carrying all this unnecessary baggage from our past is what holds us back from the joy that we can receive in our life. So what we have experienced, it does not determine who we are. It's just what we experienced. All of that, we have to make peace with our past, right? I'm not saying we have to love it. I'm not saying we have to recommend it to others, but we do have to make peace with it. We cannot let it continue to curse us now. Because if we do, it's going to continue to curse us tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. That becomes our ball and chain that follows us all the way through life, and that's what I need you to understand. Make peace with your past. Accept it. So when you do this, you will be able to live free now. And if I'm living free right now, I'm going to make much better choices than if I'm still living in bondage from whatever happened to me when I was a kid. It took me 35 years to realize this. If I could go back and do it all over again, oh my God, I would teach everyone I know. I would teach every child that gets raised, you know what? Bad things are going to happen. It's okay. Just do your best to roll and have the best time you can all the time, and don't worry about what other people think about you. And if we raise kids like this their entire life, imagine what well-adjusted human beings they would be by the time they got to be our age. Right? That's your opinion. Thanks for sharing. I like me the way I am. That's okay. So all of this, a person could engage in spiritual study all day long, but it doesn't guarantee that that person's ever going to change or raise in consciousness and get to here. If all you're doing is studying and you're not applying it in your daily life, you're just entertaining yourself. You might as well be watching Three's Company. Right? It's entertainment. You're playing with your own mind. You're entertaining yourself. If you apply the things that you're studying, if you apply the learnings, if you apply what I'm teaching you in this course to your life every day, I guarantee there's no way that you can't find more peace. There's no way that you can't make peace with a situation that's been bothering you. There's no way that you can't have more calm inside of you, more awareness.
When you say teach a child and how evolved they would be by the time they got to our age, just like this 24-year-olds, don't they have to go through some of that outer ego, that shell, to realize that you have to cross back and go into the inner? I mean, you can't get there without, because I remember people saying, be yourself, and but yet, man, I look back and I didn't know who the hell I was. How did I be myself?
I'm with you. And let me answer that very simply. If we were all raised the way I just told you, we wouldn't create the ego that needed to go through all the hardships in order to be redeveloped. The ego comes as a defense. The ego comes as the persona that we think we have to be please mom, to please dad, to please our friends, to be accepted into the group, to be one of the boys, to be one of the girls, to get on the cheerleading squad, to make the team, to get invited to the ice cream shop with all the in kids. If none of that was going on, we wouldn't have created the imbalanced ego that needed all the stuff to happen in the first place.
Wow.
right? So wisdom has the power to bring you peace. And we talked about this. Where does wisdom come from? Wisdom comes from our experiences when we learn from those things and carry it forward. Uh-huh.
But aren't we living in an economic, social, political, religious world where all these things are coming from the outside? And we have to navigate within that world, and it requires a lot of that.
And the answer to your question is yes and no. And what I mean by that is Jesus told his disciples to be in this world but not of it. Meaning, yes, you have to play out here and you have to deal with these circumstances, and you have to deal with rude people, and you have to deal with unconscious people, and you have to deal with all kinds of things that are circumstantial. But that doesn't mean that you can't be operating from an internal higher level, a higher source. So the deal is that that's why what you just described is why the world is the way it is right now. Do you know why we don't vote? Do you know why we don't make change? Do you know why we all don't get together and hold hands and go walking up on the Capitol Hill and say, look, dude, you're messing up our country. You're doing all these things. We, the people, want to get rid of all this debt and all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. The reason we don't do that is because we've been trained to live right here. You know what? Just don't come mess with my house. Don't come mess with my stuff. Don't take my job away. Don't take my car away. Don't bankrupt me. And I'll stay right here in the little cage that's been created for me, and I won't make a stink and say a word. Isn't that really what we do? When we have chaos and turmoil, that's when we get forced to do something. We don't want to go have a conversation with our neighbor about something unless we have to. We don't want to go down to the city hall and file a petition unless we have to. We don't want to go take the energy to petition a senator and to make a law changed unless we feel we have to. You ask me why did this mother have to lose her child to drunk driver? Well, you know, without it, MAD never would have happened. Without that, the awareness of the problem of the drunk driving would have never happened. Because nobody would have done anything. We would have all just said, it is what it is. It's the consciousness, unfortunately, that needs to be created. And so with all of this is the wisdom that has the power to bring the peace. If we would transcend this static state of information on this daily normal thing, and if we would actually take ourselves and reach our own full potential, if each one of us operated from our own highest potential, all of this stuff would go away in a heartbeat. We don't need the system to change. We need us to change. If you don't respond and react to all the consequences and all the bad things that happen in your life, and neither does anyone else, doesn't it just kind of fizzle out and lose all of its power and go away? We don't have to change it. It's a broken system. The only thing we have to do is change who we are, each one of us, and then another, and another, and another. And as we each change, we stop getting into the head games and the mind games and the control games with each other. And we stop getting into all of the worries and the fears and the consequences. If everybody was operating from this higher place, there wouldn't be any battles over money and power and politics and control. We would be working together to solve problems. We wouldn't be creating more problems. This is exactly what Einstein meant when he said that a problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. Do you get that? The problem is going to continue until we step above it and see a solution from another point of view, from another perception, from another level of consciousness. Wisdom, self-wisdom, taking all of your pain and suffering and collecting it into knowledge is what you need to be doing with it. Not pain, not suffering, not baggage that you lug around like a weight, which makes you tired to go to bed every day because damn, your baggage is heavy. Cut it loose. Learn the lesson from what you needed to learn, from what you experienced, and allow it to become part of your knowledge base and make you wiser for having gone through it. Right? Who's the best one to teach alcoholics how to overcome alcoholism? The alcoholic. Right? I stand here teaching you about life because, God, mine has sucked at points. It's the things that we go through that makes us have wisdom. So love yourself, love your pain. This is exactly what it meant. The Lord loves long suffering. I just explained to you exactly what that meant. Why would he love long suffering? Is he a sadist? No, he understands that that creates wisdom. So sometimes we make mistakes, but here's the biggest thing you need to understand. Pleasure is not happiness. Pleasure is a momentary from one of the five senses: touch, taste, smell, feel, sound. Oh, that sounds so lovely. That music is beautiful. I have pleasure. Oh, that smells wonderful. I have pleasure. Ooh, that feels good. I have pleasure. All of these things, when they go away, are we still pleasured? No. When the smell's gone, we forget about it. When the sound's gone, we forget about it. When we're not feeling as good because of this, when we don't see what was pleasuring us, it's gone. Instantly, right? It's a consequence. Touch, taste, feel. Happiness is a feeling that permeates our consciousness, that is a choice that we make continuously over and over and over, regardless of what's happening out here. So, the illusion that we all have to overcome to find happiness is the one that convinces us that it originates from out here as opposed to in here. This is the biggest and most important thing. If you hear nothing else from tonight, this is what I would want you to take home. Happiness is not contingent upon what's going on and happening to you. Happiness is a choice, and you have to manifest it from within your own self. The greatest words on the planet are from a pot-smoking man named Bob Marley. Don't worry, be happy. Because it's true. So, the greatest poets, the greatest philosophers the world has ever known, all attempted to define this thing called love, which we talked about a little earlier. To the Kabbalist, it's very simple. It's a form of consciousness, which means to share. I want to give of myself to you. I want to give of my life, my love, my happiness, my possessions, my time, my attention. This is how they define love. And it's much simpler than the way I tried to show you on the circle, don't you think? What's love? Love is a state of consciousness where you want to do nothing but share everything you have and everything you are with others. Isn't that really... That's the beauty of the whole part of this. It's so simple when you break it all down and get right to it. So it's a state of mind just like happiness is. Love. If you're going to love a partner, it's a choice. Do you understand this? Of course there's going to be problems. Of course you're going to fight. Of course you're going to have hiccups. Of course you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have temptations. You're going to have all these things, problems, situations. Ultimately, you choose whether or not you're going to continue to love this person. So the truth isn't always pleasant, nor does it come wrapped up in this beautiful package or coated in sugar. Often it's very tough for us to swallow. But the truth is hard to hear because it's usually what we need to hear in order to break through to the next level of consciousness pertaining to a certain issue. Do you understand? If I'm sensitive about my weight, because I was a heavy kid and picked on a lot, and my dad was always on me, right? I am going to have trouble and be sensitive to any advice or any things or any teachings from anyone else. But the truth that I'm going to need to hear, son, if you don't want to be this way, you're going to have to make peace. You're going to have to make a change. You're going to have to do something different. The truth is what we need to break through to the next level of consciousness. I don't want to hear that I'm arrogant. I don't want to hear that I'm prideful. I don't want to hear that I'm all of these things. But I may need for you to say, you know, I love you, but you really have to get this under control, or you really need to look at this. I may need to hear that in order for myself to grow, right? And so that's why they say the truth can set you free, because we live all in these self-contained illusions that we each create about our own lives, and about who we are and about how we see ourselves. We all experience personal conflict. One of the most proactive ways to handle arguments or disagreements is to take a breath and ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me? What is it that I'm not aware of? What is it that I'm not getting? Be with it for a minute and think about that and see if you can come up with what is this advice telling you to do? This advice is telling you, consider the possibilities and what your perception is. Consider what other possible perceptions might be better suited for you now, before you choose. Because once you choose, you're going to have an experience. I'm 10 minutes over and I see people getting up. Should we quit and pick up on this next time?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, before we relinquish, I hope you're starting to see now. I taught you the circles of life. I taught you the 3 levels of consciousness. I taught you how life kind of invades us and kind of creates us and makes this dualistic self between these 2 selves. Now I'm showing you kind of what these spiritual teachings are saying that apply and fit into this model. Do you have any questions? I mean, am I on target? Is this helping? Is this working? Is this better? Yes? Go ahead.
What I need is some practical exercises to get it done. Practical questions to meditate on, you know.
And that's tricky because that becomes, in this way I'm trying to teach this to a multitude of people. What you're talking about is you would have to be probably one-on-one where we would have to formulate, you need to know what your problems are. You need to know what things you want to accomplish. You need to know what you want to do. You need to know what you want to attain. You need to know what's limiting you, what's in your way. Right? Now you can do all this yourself. What is in your way? Write it down. What perceptions, what experiences are you having that aren't what you want them to be? Where do you feel like you're stuck on the elevator? Why? What is keeping you from being here? What are you unhappy about? What are you negative about? What thought, what perception? Those are the things that you all can I'm teaching you this so you can become your own self-psychologist. Physician, heal thyself. I'm trying to teach you how to heal yourself, how to overcome your own hang-ups, problems, issues. So if you start making a list, I'll be happy to talk about it with you. I mean, next time if you come, if you want to spend a little time, showing you. But any other questions about where we are or what we've discussed? Okay.